Hello, and once again, welcome everyone to Racers Vinyl Fast 5. This is episode 7. Once again, thanks everybody for tuning in. Episode number 7 of Racers Vinyl Fast 5. If this happens to be your first time here, here's how it briefly works. I've got 5 albums. One thing ties them all together. There may be more than one thing, but there is a specific one thing in my head. Your job, if you care to, shouldn't call it a job. Nobody wants to work when they're hanging out on YouTube, but you know what I mean. Your mission, if you choose to, is to figure out the thing that ties the 5 albums together. Could be a song, could be the album titles, could be the covers, could be the backs, could be a lot of things. If you choose to, try and figure out what ties these together. There you go. I don't know if that was the quick version of how it works, but that's how it works. So without further ado, let's get to episode number 7. And first up is going to be one of my all-time favorite albums, period. Definitely in my top 5. Steve Earle and Copperhead Road. I remember when this came out, I was working at a country radio station in Weyburn, and Steve had a couple of albums out already, Hillbilly Highway and Exit O, and then this came out, and it was like, well, that's a little different, isn't it? Blew my mind. Great stuff, but there's the back, there's the front. Again, could be something on the cover, could be the artist, could be songs on the album that tie these together. There is one thing. Again, there's maybe more than one thing, but there's one thing that ties them together. So that's number 1, Steve Earle, Copperhead Road. Man, if you don't have that one, go and give it a listen. Up next is Sir Elton John. This is Too Low for Zero. This is a later album, maybe not one of his most popular, but definitely had some stuff on it. And Too Low for Zero was probably the big hit off of here. Kiss the Bride, I think, might have been a hit as well. But yeah, Too Low for Zero. It's got one of those covers that you can mess with the inside. Well, you can't mess with it a whole bunch. I guess you can do that. But anyway, there you go. There's the front. There's the back. Too Low for Zero, Elton John. Next is a Canadian band, one of my favorites. I'm going to keep saying that because, you know, these albums that I choose are all my favorites. Of the X amount that I have, they're all favorites. But anyway, definitely one of my favorite Canadian bands. Unfortunately, don't tour anymore. Bob Rock's too busy producing stuff, and Mr. Hyde, I guess, just doesn't do it anymore. Anyway, Paul Hyde, and the Payolas. I think this is just actually the Payolas. Later on, it was Hyde and Rock, and it was a bunch of different stuff. Anyway, this is just the Payolas, and this is Hammer on a Drum, and this is an outstanding album, and there is something about this one that ties in with the rest. So there's the front, there's the back. There you go, Hammer on a Drum by the Payolas. And up next, not much to say, not much you have to say about this guy. Fantastic singer-songwriter. Unfortunately passed away from COVID a couple of years ago, but this is a great album. There isn't one that isn't of his, kind of like Steve Earle. If you can tell me a bad Steve Earle album, I will give you $1. Because everybody can pick one, kind of. But there aren't any, so don't even try. Anyway, there aren't any bad John Prine albums either. But Sweet Revenge, John Prine front, there is the back. Something on that one ties it all together. And last but not least is my childhood crush, my current crush probably still. Anyway, and I think my wife knows that because she'll be watching this. But I'm pretty sure she knows that. Anyhow, I've mentioned it before. Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. This is back to the second album, I Love Rock and Roll. Not a bad song on here. And just a fantastic album by Joan and the Blackhearts. There is the front, there is the back, and there you go. So, Joan Jett, I Love Rock and Roll, and the Blackhearts, that is. Not that that necessarily matters, but you never know. It shouldn't, but it might. Yeah. Anyway, John Prine, Sweet Revenge, the Payolas, Hammer on a Drum, Elton John, Too Low for Zero, and Steve Earle, Copperhead Road. There is your 5 albums. You tell me, if you choose to, in the comments, what is something that ties all those 5 together. Thanks very much for playing along. Appreciate it. Like, subscribe, notify, do all that YouTubey stuff. You know what to do. Again, this has been Racers Vinyl Fast 5, and this was episode 7. Thanks very much for watching. Yeah, blah, blah, blah.